You guys are getting too big to be jumping up on people. You're too big.
The geographic journey that Eddie L. Hoover made from his childhood home in Charlotte to a 20-year stay in Buffalo, New York is certainly dramatic for its contrast in weather.
I didn't like it when I first got here because I'd never seen this much snow.
But more profound is the life journey Dr. Hoover took from a hardscrabble childhood in the segregated South to earning an international reputation as a cardiothoracic and general surgeon and mentor to African American surgeons. He served on several National Institutes of Health surgical study sections, has been a visiting professor around the world, has led the departments of surgery at 2 universities, and is editor-in-chief of the Journal of the National Medical Association.
I think that those of us who interacted with him saw that it was going to be a contribution at a national scale.
Dr. Hoover earned his undergraduate degree at UNC Chapel Hill and arrived at Duke in 1965 as just the second African-American student in the medical school. The racial climate in the South at the time was charged, but he remained intensely focused on his medical education. He was elected class president and president of the Student Government Association. He won both the prestigious Thomas Jefferson Award and the School of Medicine Service Award. To his classmates, he showed no visible discomfort with the stark lack of diversity on the Duke campus at the time.
In spite of enormous difficulties and uniqueness that he faced that the others of us didn't even realize were perhaps besetting him, but he was a steady colleague.
The salvation for me when I got to Duke was my professors and my classmates. They were absolutely wonderful. There was a Dr. Ebert who had come down from Hopkins in '65 to do the congenital heart disease cases. So he and Dr. Sabelson were my primary mentors. I looked up on those as my role models. Dr. Sabelson was born in the wrong century and in the wrong place. He should have been born in England 100 years ago. He just had that British aristocratic halo about him.
The integration of the Duke Medical Campus took time, but early on, Dr. Hoover said it was clear to him that administrators were taking it very seriously.
Dr. Anion had meetings, and they had decided that any patient refusing to be treated by me would be asked to leave the medical center. I thought that was a very bold stroke for them to do to make sure that the integration process worked.
He was the first African-American resident at Duke selected through the match process. And after a 2-year surgical residency at Duke, Dr. Hoover served in the Vietnam War as a surgeon at the U.S. Navy Hospital in Guam, where his surgical skills were honed in a year of treating some of the most devastating injuries he would ever see. But Guam was not without some lighter moments. He tells the story of a sailor who was stricken with appendicitis while on board a U.S. ballistic submarine.
So what they did with this poor kid, they surfaced the sub, put him on a raft, took all of his insignia off his uniform, and told him to just sit here. A helicopter was going to come pick him up in about an hour. So they left this poor kid bobbling around in the ocean.
When the sailor arrived in Guam, Dr. Hoover determined that he didn't have appendicitis after all, but had passed a kidney stone.
And he said, well, when are you going to operate, Doc? I said, you don't need an operation. You just pass the kidney stone. He said, you got to operate, Doc. You got to do something. Because if I don't go back to Hawaii with a scar, nobody else is ever going to get off a sub again to go for medical treatment. So I said, well, I'm sorry. You don't get an operation for that reason here.
He completed surgical residency with Dr. Ebert in Manhattan, then became Chief of Surgical Services at the Brooklyn VA Medical Center. He then was appointed chairman of the Department of Surgery at Meharry Medical College in Nashville. In 1990, he began his long and successful career at SUNY Buffalo, serving as chairman of the Department of Surgery, executive director of the General Surgery Residency Program, chief of the Division of Cardiothoracic Surgery, and professor of surgery. He is a former president of both the surgical section of the National Medical Association and the Society of Black Academic Surgeons. And he co-authored the 2008 landmark American Medical Association apology to the National Medical Association for past unequal treatment of black doctors. He was inducted into dozens of medical societies and associations, including the American Surgical Association, the Society of University Surgeons, and the International Society of Surgery. And he won many awards for his mentoring.
Mentoring awards probably mean more to me than most of these things because it's recognition by the people that you've taught over the years that what you did made a difference in their lives.
He retired from SUNY Buffalo at the beginning of 2013 and has been working with various governments in the Caribbean to develop and administer better standardized exams to make surgical residents there better qualified for additional training in the U.S. Dr. Hoover and his second wife, Gwendolyn, a family physician, live on a large horse farm on the outskirts of Buffalo. A purchase, Dr. Hoover said, he made to entice his wife to agree to move to Buffalo.
We will probably stay here for maybe another year or so and then go back to warmer weather.
The big question is, though, if he moves back to North Carolina, which basketball team will he root for?
Well, you know, it took me about 30 years to learn to root for Duke when they were playing Carolina. But if it's head-to-head Duke Carolina, it's Carolina.